Welcome to the WiseTake DFS podcast, sponsored by the hottest team in the DFS industry, Daily Roto Sharks. If you want to be prepared for your DFS slates every night, you need to join the hashtag Sheet Squad movement. Check it out at dailyrotosharks.com. Now, just click the link in the description. Help yourself out. Help the podcast out. I'm your host, CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I'm joined by WiseTake podcast regular and Daily Roto Sharks contributor, writer of Matt's Stacks over on Daily Roto Sharks, Matt Amon. Matt, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. I'm just hoping for this Boston Cubs game to end real quick because I got a bunch of teams that are doing good in the afternoon slate, and I don't have any of the batters left, so I just want the game to just end.
I gotcha. For those of you, one thing I forgot to mention about Matt, if you want to contact Matt on Twitter, you can find him at MattAmon123. Matt, overall, this whole weekend, how did it go overall?
It went good. It went good. I've been doing pretty well. I haven't had any bust out, big scores, but I've been consistently winning. So I'm excited. I feel like I'm improving. I'm kind of getting a better handle on the season and all the new players and situations. So I'm starting to feel good.
Awesome, man. Now, I got to give you props today. You were all over. You wrote up the Indians today as your stack for the main slate, and you crushed it, man. You were right on. I read your article. I was big on the Indians. The only team that you left out a little bit, and that I left out in my lineups was, of course, the Washington Nationals. Man, unbelievable.
Boy, they're really good. The one thing I did do is I didn't write about Thor as one of my favorite pitchers because I was just worried about his injury situation and I just didn't trust it. So I didn't write about him, but I didn't think, oh well, this will be a good spot to jump on the Nationals.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Maybe I should have seen that. I don't
No,
know.
and it's funny though because like the other day we had Scotty and Bill on, two of the other Daily Roto Sharks writers, and we had a conversation. One of them had mentioned that they were gonna stack against Thor. Now Thor, the Braves, they were gonna stack the Braves against Thor, and now Thor ended up not going the next day. And I was saying, I was like, I don't think that's I don't think that's a very good idea. And they were saying like, well, if he blows up, he'll be the only one that has him. And tonight was an example of it working out. The difference, though, in my opinion, there's a big difference between taking a chance on fading Thor and leveraging against him by stacking against him with the Nationals and with the Braves. I think that when you're dealing with a team like the Nationals, which in my opinion, let's be real, the Nationals are far, far more powerful, more potent than the Braves as a team, right?
Well, yeah, they're number one in the league in runs scored.
Right.
And not only that, I mean, I have all kinds of things to say on that subject because I was listening to that pod and it's really interesting. Like, do you want to stack against the super elite pitchers? And it's not something that I do very often. But I think on a day like today, you could make a case for it because it's like we know Thor is injured. Like there's something wrong with him. Like it's borderline. And not only that, you have the number one offense in the league in a spot where nobody's going to play them on a really warm day. So it's like everything kind of aligned. Like the last time when it was the Braves at Citi Field on a cold day, like I can't get on board with that. Right. But if someone told me they were doing it today, I could have been more okay with it. Now, I didn't do it, but I could be okay with that.
Yeah, it's funny.
So I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want you to finish.
I was saying, I think there's times where you can do it.
Yeah.
But I like to find, there's plenty of low-owned spots on every slate to attack. And for me, attacking the super elite aces is just not something I want to do.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And like on most nights when something like this happens, you could probably get there another way. There's a lot of games, right? Like for instance, now obviously this specific slate, forget about it. You had to have Rendon, you had to have Wieters, you had to have Zimmerman, you had to have those guys. But on most, like say that they did good, but they didn't do like 20 plus runs good, you could have probably gotten away with like either Seattle with the Indians or maybe the Twins with the Indians or the Royals with the Indians. So there was other ways to go. Now tonight that wasn't the case. Tonight, I mean, come on, man, 99 FanDuel points for Rendon. I mean, that's just not something you see. We're talking Russell.
That's like once or twice a year,
dude,
something like
we're
that.
Talking Russell Westbrook numbers, man, like in baseball, dude.
Oh, man.
Absolutely not.
The thing is like, just for instance, real quick, like today I love the Indians. And a couple of my better teams had Roberto Perez and Abraham Almonte. Like, guys that were super low owned that hit in the bottom of the order that nobody plays. But like for me, I would rather get those guys at low ownership than even like, Rendon against Thor.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's like I'll take the lesser talented guy in the better spot, because if I think the Indians are going to go off, like they're going to get at bats with people on base, they're going to face a bad pitcher, like they're going to be in a good spot.
Right. No, absolutely. I 100% agree. Before we touch on the last games, I did have a little mini sweat myself, Matt. Not today, but I think it was, I want to say it was either Friday or I don't even remember. I think it was Saturday. Maybe it was Friday. But
Right.
I held first in the FanDuel Live final qualifier for most of the night, man. And I was trying not to believe into the hype because I had a feeling I really needed the Red Sox to go off, and they didn't do it enough. I ended up finishing 12th in the qualifier, which I'll take it, man. I got my entry fee back plus a little bit of money, but that was definitely my biggest sweat of the MLB season, man. I thought I had it. So appreciate the whole Daily Roto Sharks team, including yourself, Matt, who were rooting me on that day, and we had a fun time in the little DRS staff chat. We had a lot of fun there. Guys, before we dive into this tomorrow's MLB slate, I wanted to say one more time, it's adamant that you are prepared for your DFS, especially with a sport like baseball, which is very numbers-based. Do yourself a favor, click the link in the description, go to our sponsors, Daily Roto Sharks, and sign up, man. It's not just about these cheat sheets. Yeah, you want the cheat sheets, of course. That's the main core, but you also get access to the Slack chat. You also get access to some of the experts whenever you need it. You get a community. It's always good to hear other people's insights, other people's ideas when looking at a slate and building lineups. So do yourself a favor, click the link in the description and sign up and join the hashtag Sheet Squad movement. Matt Amon, what is it?
What are we? Hashtag Sheet Squad, baby.
That's it. All right, guys, let's dive in. We got 11 games to get in, and I'm excited for a new day of DFS. That's the best thing about MLB DFS, right? There's always tomorrow.
Yeah, every day. I'm excited every day. Like brings new hope. Like today could be the day that we get the big score. So I'm always excited every day to get to a new set of games.
Absolutely, let's do it. All right, we got Marco Estrada of the Toronto Blue Jays visiting Luis Severino of the New York Yankees. Start us off, Matt.
Well, this game's pretty interesting. At first glance, the first thing that stands out is I love Luis Severino. He's been great this season. He's been striking people out left and right. We know Toronto has been really bad this year. We know Toronto's really right-handed. We know they strike out a lot. And it looks like it's going to be a cold night in the Bronx, and the wind will be blowing away from the short porch. So all those things combined make me really like Severino, and he actually could be my favorite pitcher on the slate with price being a thing. I mean, we do have Clayton Kershaw, but obviously he's in a different price stratosphere. So I really like Severino. Marco Estrada's a guy I can normally get behind, but the Yankees have just been really good. Like I'm starting to believe in the Yankees. I think their lineup is really good, really deep, really balanced, kind of a good mix of veterans and young studs. So I think I'm off Marco Estrada here, but we'll kind of have to go through and see kind of what the full slate brings in terms of pitching. And then on the bat side, I mean, you would just guess if I love Severino so much, I don't like the Jays, and I don't really. And then, I think Estrada's just good enough to where I don't really want to pick on him a whole bunch. If you wanted to take a few one-offs from the Yankees, that would be okay. But I'm not super in love with it.
Yeah, I'm with you pretty much 100% on this one. Now, see, I am not a believer in the Yankees. I'm not a Yankee hater. I may be a Met fan, and
Yes,
no, I'm not. I'm really not. I promise. I'm not a Yankee hater. I got no reason to hate. Okay, maybe I got a little bit of a reason being a Met fan, but I promise you, I'm not. I don't mind the Yankees when they're not like a championship contender. I don't mind them. And I root for them. My father-in-law is a Yankee fan. I got some Yankee fans in the family, so I try. But but I believe in them like now. Like if they're on a streak, ride that streak because they're capable, especially in this ballpark. Now, I'm not a believer in them in the long term. I think this team is eventually going to go super cold, and right now they're super hot, and people are still refusing to play them. And what's going to happen is people are going to catch on. They're going to start finally playing these Yankee bats. It could be today against Estrada. We'll find out as we go through the games. But eventually the public is going to hop on these Yankee bats, and I'm telling you, they're going to go into a cold streak. This team we saw last year, the Yankees can get cold just like anybody else, and they have a lot of exciting young guys that people don't know. But people are starting to know who they are. The guys like Judge, Bird hasn't really been doing much, but guys like Judge, Headley's been doing well. Austin Romine even has been getting in the mix. Castro's been doing. People are starting to, yeah, that's right. The Yankees got all these bats, and the minute everybody hops on, man, I'm telling you, you're going to see the Yankees go cold. Now, as far as this game, I'm with you, though. I have no interest in Estrada. There's no real strikeout upside for him, nor do the Yankees strike out. I'm with you on Severino. He's got the K upside. We know the Blue Jays strike out. Obviously, the ballpark isn't the greatest. However, like you mentioned, the weather's not ideal for hitting. So if I'm going to take anybody from this game, it's Severino. And I'm not too big on the Yankees just because I think there's other teams I like. But I don't mind. I don't mind the Yankees at all. Anything else to add, or should we go on?
Gary Sanchez is about to come back too.
Is he really?
And, yeah, he was pretty good last year. I don't know if he's coming back today or tomorrow, but he's going to be back soon, and that's going to add another dimension to their lineup.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I believe in them in terms of like they're going to win the World Series, but I do think they could be a 90 win in it till the end type of team.
I don't think so. I get it. I understand. They have the young talent. I don't think they're far from that. And who knows? Maybe they make a couple of trades at the trade deadline. That could certainly change perspective. But what I see right now, you know what it is, Matt? I don't think they have enough starting pitching. That's honestly.
Their bullpen is good, though.
Yes, it is absolutely.
I mean,
You're right.
If Severino keeps going good and Pineda is as good as he's been, I don't know. I just think if we set the line at 88.5 for the season, where are you going?
88. I'm going under.
All right, I'll take the over if you want it.
Okay, 88.5. Right. We'll have to remember that one. We'll keep track of that. That'll be a fun one for the end of the season pod. You know what I mean?
You got it. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We got Jake Odorizzi of the Tampa Bay Rays visiting Wei-Yin Chen, the lefty from the Miami Marlins. Go ahead, Matt.
All right, this is the game I didn't quite get to yet when we were going through, so I'm going to take a quick gander with you.
Sure.
So it looks like Odorizzi got injured maybe in his last start, and then now he's kind of coming back. At first thought, when I haven't really looked that deeply, I kind of like Odorizzi a little bit just because the Marlins strike out so much. It's a great park for pitching. Odorizzi usually faces a DH. He won't be facing one here. So at first glance, I kind of have a little interest, and he's kind of cheap, but I would never play him over Severino at similar prices. So that, of course, curbs my interest. And then on the other side, I'm not going to play Chen. He doesn't strike people out. He's a fly ball pitcher, so I don't really have a lot of interest in Chen. I know that you always love Tampa Bay, so and Tampa Bay is much more fairly priced today than they have been. So, I have to dig a little deeper, and I'm sorry for not really having a good concrete answer right off the bat here. But in this ballpark, I have a hard time stacking up either team. But there's plenty of guys that you could go to for a one-off here, a Stanton or Yelich or Longoria or Souza or, all these guys that hit home runs.
Yeah, no, for sure. So what I see now, obviously this could change. The weather source that I use may not be as reliable. You're going to want to check tomorrow. What I see now is 15-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from right field. If that's going to be the case tomorrow, that's going to make me not like either of these bats too much. I'm not interested in either of these pitchers. And for the same reason you said, Matt, I think there's other guys in these price ranges that I would rather play. And don't get me wrong, I think Chen, if the weather's bad, I think I'd prefer Chen over Odorizzi just because of the fact that the Rays, it's kind of like the point you made on the Friday pod with Stroman. It's not necessarily his strikeout upside I'm after. It's the fact that the Rays strike out so much. And now I know that Ben had mentioned that their numbers historically were better against lefties, and I would believe that for sure. But when I look right now at these projected lineups against the lefty, Souza, big strikeout contender. Longoria strikes out. Ricky Weeks strikes out a ton. Beckham strikes out. Miller strikes out. So you go down the list of their lineup against lefties, and they have a decent lineup as far as homers go. And so if the weather clears up, I'm going to like the bats in both these games. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I want to play Chen. On FanDuel, which is what I primarily play for MLB, Chen is 8.1. I'd much rather just go up to Severino at 8.5. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Chen. I'm just saying basically what I'm trying to say is if the weather clears up, I'm going to like these bats. If the weather does not clear up, then I'm probably not going to like this game at all. So I like the over-under. I like, it's about 8.5 or so. I like that. And I had a lot of Miami stacks today, man. Let me tell you, Board did me justice today. He did well. He had a monster game. I don't think a lot of people even realize because the Nats went nuts. Board had a monster game today. And, yeah, so I like the bats from both sides here, to be honest with you. But I'm hoping this weather. I'm not even concerned about the 52% chance of rain. I just want to see that wind change because 15 mile an hour in, it's rough, right?
Well, the good news is that they can close the roof, so you don't have to worry about rain. And then it seems to me like they close the roof most of the time, and probably because it's probably just a little bit too humid to want to sit out in. So if I was a gambler, which of course I am, I would bet that the roof will be closed and we won't have to worry about that.
That's phenomenal news. That's phenomenal news. So with that said, go ahead. Finish your thought.
I was also going to point out real quick is, the Rays do have a stigma that they hit lefties really well. But if you remember back to last year when they were number one against lefties, they had guys like Brandon Guyer and Steve Pearce who both really hit lefties well, and they don't have them anymore.
Yes.
So, and a lot of times they still hit Tim Beckham down in the 9-hole, which I think is pretty silly. So I don't think they're quite as good against lefties as they were last year.
Yes, I'm 100%. That was the point that I was making to Ben on the last pod when Ben was saying he prefers to take the Rays against lefties. I was like, yeah, last year when they had Pierce and Guyer. Ricky Weeks, listen, I take Weeks all the time. He's a great punt option, especially hitting fourth. Yeah, because he's cheap and he hits fourth, right? But the guy strikes out a ton. So it's like, you know what I mean? So I'm with you. I prefer to take this new Rays team. I prefer to take them against righties. Now, I do like him a little bit. I like the bats on both sides, like I said. But I will admit, I think Chen is kind of sneaky. Now, do I think he's like, I got to play this guy? No. But I definitely think he's a little bit sneaky. He's been bad. Nobody's going to go there. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm going to go there. But I can tell you nobody else is either. All right, you want to move on?
Yep.
All right, we got Garrett Cole of the Pittsburgh Pirates visiting Amir Garrett, the lefty from the Cincinnati Reds. Go ahead, Matt.
Boy, this is a fun matchup for pitching. Garrett Cole's been really good in his last few starts. And I remember last time specifically, I said, you know what, I really like Garrett Cole in the spot. And you and Fuego both laughed at me.
Yes, we did.
And he was pretty good.
Yes, he was.
So, I think Garrett Cole kind of has the stuff back, and I kind of have interest here today, even though it's in Great American Small Park. It looks like the temperature is going to be a little bit down, like 60 degrees, and the wind is blowing 18 miles an hour across the field towards left field. So that, of course, is a little not great, but it's not the worst. And Cole's price is really fair, so I have interest there. And then on the other side, Amir Garrett is $5,500 on DraftKings, which is just absurd.
Wow.
Absurdly cheap for the talent that this guy has. I guess they dropped his price just because Milwaukee just bombed him last time.
Right.
But I don't see Pittsburgh being able to do the same sort of thing. And in fact, he faced Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh 3 starts ago, and he was pretty good. Six innings, 5 strikeouts, 2 runs given up, 21.4 DraftKings points. So that's pretty good. And if he got 16 or 15 points at 5,500, I would lock him in. So he's certainly interesting and certainly very much a play tomorrow. But you could also play the other side and say, well, I'm going to stack up Pittsburgh just in case he blows up again like he did against Milwaukee in a good hitter's park. I don't think I'm necessarily going to do that, or I'm on board with that, but I could see the merit in it.
Sure, I think that makes a lot of sense. I certainly do. I think Garrett's a very sneaky play. Now, I think part of the reason that you mentioned about Garrett's price, he's 7.5 on FanDuel, so he's not super priced up, but obviously he's a lot more expensive than he is on DraftKings. I think part of the reason is because the Pirates have also been pretty hot offensively, and that changes with the series, right? It changes with the field. Maybe there's a bad kind of. You know what I'm saying? Like a travel situation. Who knows? Maybe right. But you know what? To be honest, I think that it's interesting because I think the Reds at home here against Cole, they know Cole. That's not saying much. It's not something you want to base your decisions off of. But I think the Reds could be sneaky. They have the bats. They've been hitting the ball very well lately. Duval, Schebler especially, he's been red hot. Guys like Kozar can hit righties. Votto, is a monster. So anytime that I get an opportunity to take the Reds at home in a ballpark, and from what I'm seeing now, the winds aren't blowing out, but they're 17-mile-an-hour winds, so it's fairly windy. I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like nobody's going to go back to Garrett because of what you just said. The Brewers just blew him up. I think everybody's going to go back to Cole because there isn't, aside from Kershaw, there is no real elite you feel super comfortable with. So at 9K on FanDuel, I feel like people might skip Severino and go up to Cole just because of the fact, the Reds, that they're terrible, which is a possibility. It's not a definite. But yeah, so I'm not big on Cole today. And I know I laughed at you. You were right. I was wrong. I'll wear the dunce hat. You had me. I didn't like him last time. You called it. He went out and pitched a phenomenal game. I'll give you the props where the props is due. But I prefer Garrett. And to be honest, I think the Red Stack could be a little sneaky. One thing I will be doing tomorrow, Matt, is I'm a big person. I'm big on Vegas. I'm going to be following the line movement here. I want to see which way this line moves. Because if all of a sudden I wake up tomorrow and the Reds are favored, I'm going to like the Reds a lot more, and I'm going to like Amir Garrett a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, you want to move on?
Yeah, I'm getting texts from Fuego. He might call into the show, so I'm trying to set it up.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be nice. Yeah, Fuego was supposed to join us. He got caught up with some personal stuff he had to take care of. Life. Sometimes we do have life, and sometimes we got to deal with life. And so if he gets to call in, that'd be phenomenal. If we could figure out a way to get him on here, that'd be great. Let's see. All right. In the meantime, Trevor Bauer, the righty from the Cleveland Indians, visiting Daniel Norris, the lefty from the Detroit Tigers. What you got for us, Matt?
Yeah, I'm excited to play the bats in this game. I think it's kind of going to be a little bit of a sneaky spot. Trevor Bauer struggles with home runs. You could play Trevor Bauer because he has a decent strikeout rate this season, and the Tigers are really right-handed. But I definitely think there's a better chance that the Tigers get to him here. So I like the Tigers. And then Daniel Norris on the other side looks like he's having a lot of control problems this year, really high walk rate. So we know that could be problems, and we know the Indians are really good at everything. So I really like the Indians here. I think they're the favorite offense, my favorite offense we've gone over so far.
Yeah, it's hard not to like the Indians in this spot, especially what you just mentioned. Every time Norris goes, I say the same thing. He struggles with walks. How long is he going to last? And then you're looking at one of the worst bullpens in the league. I love the Indians spot here. I couldn't agree with you more on the Indians. They continue to go overlooked. These guys made it to the World Series last year, and listen, they're not super low owned, but they're not as chalky as I kind of thought they would be this year. And I love the Indians. I do like the Tigers a lot as well, specifically Kinsler, Castellanos. Upton's been red hot. I got a lot of love for the Tigers, but the Indians. I mean, how do you not like the Indians? But as just for the fact of I'm not afraid of Bauer. I certainly think that I think the Tigers stack here is interesting. I'm not going to be on any of the hitters though, for sure. Pitchers. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be on any of the pitchers for sure. All right, you guys, you want to move on? I'm looking at the chat and I'm like, you guys.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah, let's do it. Dylan Bundy of the Baltimore Orioles Fuegos team visiting Rick Porcello of the Boston Red Sox. Go ahead, Matt. What you got for us?
Well, we've seen in the last couple of days how different how different Fenway can play from one day to the next. We saw 2 days ago on Saturday, it was a really warm day with the wind blowing out and the ball was really flying. And then tonight for the Sunday night game, it was cold and the wind was blowing in, and the field was playing really big. So again, tomorrow night we kind of have a cold wind blowing in night in Boston. So because of that, I'm a little bit more on the pitchers here. I do like Dylan Bundy. He's been really good. He faced the Red Sox a couple games ago and put up a 21.6 point DraftKings game. Didn't allow a run. The only problem is here, of course, the Red Sox don't strike out very much, and he doesn't have a really high strikeout rate, so it's not the best upside matchup, but for 7,000 on DraftKings, I could definitely see going there. And then on the other side, I rarely play Rick Porcello just because he's always a little bit more expensive for the upside that he brings to the table. And a lot of the Baltimore guys have decent BVP off him. They've faced him a lot. And I switched my page to see what the Yankees record was when I was trying to bet you. But guys like Chris Davis and Adam Jones and Mark Trumbo, all 3 home runs off him. That being said, I'm not crazy about an Orioles stack just because of the weather I said. And Porcello's a decent enough pitcher. but I don't really want to use Porcello either.
Yeah, I'm with you on. I don't like playing Porcello either. Maybe against the Rays, but even then, the Rays are kind of better against righties this season, so not even really then. I don't like playing in this ballpark. Now, listen, once in a while he'll have that game. Like I can't say he has no ceiling because once in a while he'll show you a little bit. But I like targeting against him often, to be honest with you. I'm with you on the weather. You're completely right. We've seen super high totals. We even this game I think is about 8.5. So we've seen super high totals here against the Cubs. I think it opened up at like 10 and went down to 8.5. So you make a merit. The weather has a lot to say in this ballpark, and I'm certainly with you there. However, I do like Baltimore. I think they're heating up a little bit. Now they just lost a devastating loss to the Yankees today, but they're heating up. They put up big runs. The first game, the night that I almost won the qualifier, the Orioles are the reason I was there. When these guys are on, they're on. They have tremendous upside as a team. Manny Machado crushes righties. Trumbo can crush righties. These teams, they're good at, in my opinion, they kind of strike out more against lefties. Now, I have to look at the statistics to back that up. I haven't looked, but
I think you're right about that.
so it's strange to me, and especially when Porcello, who's not a super high K upside guy, I think I like Baltimore a little bit more than you do. I think I do.
Yep.
You want to move on?
Yeah.
All right, we got Robert Giselman of my Embarrass-Mets visiting Julio Teheran of the Atlanta Braves. You like how I snuck that in there, right?
I do.
Yeah, I'm a Met fan. I could say it. All right, Matt, what are we doing here?
Did you see the video on Twitter today of the Mets fan that's like 10 years old just going off?
Yes, I did.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw.
Oh, it was incredible. But anyways, you were telling me pre-show how much you love the Mets in the spot, and I think I agree a little bit. We know Teheran struggles with lefties. We know the Mets have a jillion lefties. We know the new ballpark in Atlanta favors left-handed power. It's going to be a little bit warmer than most of the other games on the slate, so I do have interest in the Mets here also. I want to look at their prices. Boy, and they're really cheap too. That's weird. I mean, why would they make Reyes the most expensive Met?
Really?
Yeah, 30 and only 3,500. I mean, if you wanted to stack up the Mets, you could get Kershaw later on. You could play Kershaw and Severino and be really excited about it. So, you're Asdrubal, Curtis Granderson, Jose Reyes, Neil Walker, Conforto stack could look real good alongside Clayton Kershaw and Severino. So I agree with you there. And then on the other side, can you tell me a little bit about your boy Giselman? He seems not very good, and also the Braves beat him up pretty good last time too, and that was in New York. So now in Atlanta, I think, and the Braves rather have been hitting really well. So I think I do like the Braves here quite a bit.
I'm with you 100%. I did tell you I like the Mets, and the only reason I mentioned that I like the Mets is because I felt like that may be a slightly more contrarian. Everybody just watched them get whooped by the Nationals today. I mean, whooped. And the Braves, like you said, they've been swinging the bat well. And they just watched Teheran shut the Mets down in Citi Field. Let me tell you something. This new Braves stadium is not Citi Field. This is the park that was built for Freddie Freeman, which means it was built for lefty power. So I think Teheran does struggle against lefties. So I think this is a whole different situation that we can see.
Go ahead, finish your take.
Sure. So as far as Giselman, I don't think he's any good. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a Met fan. I watched him last year. I was appreciative of the effort he gave with all the injuries last year. I had a feeling he was going to regret. I just didn't think he was any good. So I love the Braves. I love both offenses here. I think Teheran might steal some people's money. I think they're going to look, the Mets are terrible and they're not hitting well. And Teheran shuts them down every time. And Teheran has great BVP numbers against the Mets. But I think these Mets lefties, they got embarrassed, man. And professional teams respond when they get embarrassed. I love the Mets. And like you said, they're cheap enough. Even on FanDuel, you can play these guys with Kershaw and just sit back and win all the money. So I love a game stack here. I love both sides for sure offensively. Is that Fuego on the phone?
Yeah, we got Fuego.
Fuego.
Here, I'll put him up. Let's see if you can hear him. Go ahead, Fuego.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Can you hear him, Chris?
How you come to hear me?
Barely.
Mac, you hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. I like you guys were talking about I like I'm sorry, I lost my picture.
Fuego is still Fuego.
So I really like the other side. I don't like the Mets as much.
He likes the Braves.
Yeah, I like the Braves. They have
So you're playing 100% Tehran tomorrow, or what?
Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say that. So far, Vargas said Yankees fucking up Severino already.
Yep, I told him, said he was my favorite pitcher.
Yeah, he's number one in my model, and I don't think he got to McCullers, who I like, but I like Severino a lot tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll have a little Toronto next year because I think I'm going to throw 50 lineups in the $5 queue, which, by the way, on the FanDuel can't play full.
Yeah. Get in there, baby.
Get in there, Fuego.
All right, guys. Well, you have a good evening. I'll catch up here later in the week.
Hey,
All
for
right.
sure, Fuego.
Later, buddy.
Thanks for calling in, buddy.
Hey, bye.
It's always good to hear from Fuego, Steve. So Fuego likes Severino. I think he said Severino is the top guy in his model, and he does not like the Mets offense, and he likes Tehran a little bit, and he likes the Braves offense. I'm with him on the Braves offense. I am not with him on Tehran. Listen to this on FanDuel, right? Julio Tehran is 8.4. Severino is, let me check the book. I think it's 8.5. You're talking a $100 difference, and I'd be very curious to see, especially with the potential rain in New York tomorrow. I'd be very curious to see how many people choose Tehran over Severino. I like this Mets offense, man. You call me a homer, I know it's fine, I expect it, but I really like this Mets offense. I think they're super sneaky. The Mets offense often goes overowned, and remember, Matt, this is a team that does not play small ball. If they're going to score runs, they're hitting home runs. That's what they do.
You're 100% right about that. Hey, I told you I like the Mets stack. I'm totally on board. Because like I said, Tehran does really struggle with lefties, and we know the Mets have a ton.
Yes. Fuego, if you were on the pod, Fuego, I don't know if you're listening, but if you were on the pod, I would make an avatar bet with you about the Mets. I would. But you're not. So we'll see. Who knows? Maybe I'll be the lucky one for that. All right, you want to move on?
Yeah.
All right, we got Vince Velazquez of the Philadelphia Phillies visiting Brett Anderson, the lefty from the Chicago Cubs. Let's start us off, Matt.
Well, I don't think I can play Brett Anderson. He just doesn't have the upside that I'm looking for. And then on the other side, it seems like Vince Velazquez has lost it. He doesn't strike people out anymore, and he just hasn't been pitching very well. And then we know that he struggles with the home run ball. Also, and it looks like the wind's going to be blowing out at Wrigley tomorrow. As of right now, 20 miles an hour blowing out to center, which would usually be a massive deal. It's a little less of a deal because it's supposed to be 49 degrees,
right,
but it's still significant, especially because Velazquez, like I said, struggles with the home run ball. Because of that, I could probably look to the Cubs here for a stack, and I don't think I can look to the pitchers. And then on the Philly side, I don't think they have quite enough power for me to want to stack them up. But if you wanted to go mini stack, Maikel Franco, Tommy Joseph, Cesar Hernandez, Altair, Rupp, I think all those guys are in play. Although I think I did just make an argument for stacking the Phillies.
You did, dude. I don't know. I don't think you realize this, but you kind of talked me onto the Phillies a little bit offensively.
Yeah. I gotta look and see how bad Brett Anderson is, other than just not striking people out, because it doesn't look like he really has a home run problem. and he is a lot of ground balls too. His last start, 12 ground balls and only 2 fly balls.
Oh yeah. No, if he keeps the ball on the ground, certainly. But I know you mentioned the weather's terrible. I'm looking. It's going to be chilly. But we're waiting to see the wind. We're waiting for the total for the wind. If this wind's blowing out, man, I love me some Phillies. They've been playing pretty well, man. Listen, they had a tough spot in LA against your Dodgers, but I think we both know that the Dodgers have one of, if not the best bullpen in baseball. So that's tough for any team, and they got some pretty good starters. Even what's his name, the Korean guy today, Ryu? I don't know.
Yeah, Ryu. Yeah.
Hey, man, he got it done. He started off shaky, but he got it done. I think the Phillies against a pitcher like Brett Anderson, if that wind is blowing out, nobody ever plays the Phillies, right? Like, people just hate playing them. So I definitely think that I think the Phillies are sneaky. I don't know how much I like them. It'll change tomorrow. I want to see where the line goes here, but I think the Phillies could be sneaky. I'm a little surprised that Velazquez is that much of a dog against Anderson, but again, you know what? No, it makes sense because you're talking about the Cubs here. The Cubs are one of the best offenses in the league. It makes perfect sense. I don't know. Yeah, I'm with you. You want to move on?
Yep.
All right, Andrew Cashner of the Texas Rangers visiting Lance McCullers of the Houston Astros. Start us off, man.
Normally, I love McCullers, and I play him all the time. I think he has maybe the second best curveball in all of baseball, only behind Clayton Kershaw, but I don't think I can play him here. He's a little bit too expensive, and the Rangers are a little bit too good for me to want to roster him, and especially against the righty, and they just have tons of lefty pop. So I don't think I'm super interested in McCullers as much as I'd normally be. And then on the other side, I think Houston is my favorite stack of the day at this moment, just because Cashner's not good, and then I did mention earlier that it's kind of a day where the weather's kind of cold almost everywhere, and the wind is kind of negative for hitters. But this game, 81 degrees with the wind blowing out. Of course, you got to look and see if that roof is going to be open there. It was open today, and it's kind of rare to see that. But it looks like no chance of rain or thunderstorms or anything. So I would not be surprised if the roof was open here, and that would be a nice bump for hitters. So because of that, I'm really interested in the Houston bats. Altuve, Correa, Springer, Brian McCann, Beltran, Reddick. This first baseman, Yuli Gurriel, he's been really hitting well too. So all those guys are in play for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like McCullers a lot. I want to like him, but I think against Texas, I prefer to play the lefties. And the reason that I like to play the lefties is because I'm more afraid of the lefty bats. I'm not so afraid of Napoli. I'm not so afraid of Andres or even Carlos Gomez. Don't get me wrong; they could do damage, but they also strike out a ton. I'm a little afraid of Odor, Mazzara, Gallo. I'm a little afraid of those guys. Those guys got some serious power. So I'm a little bit worried about McCullers, although I do think he's going to make a great tournament play just because of the fact that I don't think too many people are going to go there. I think they'll either go up to Kershaw or they'll try to go cheaper with Tehran or Severino or something like that. So I'm with you on the bats. I love the bats from the Houston side specifically. My problem is, man, every time I stack against Cashner, I get burned, man. I look at his numbers. He just doesn't seem that good to me based off his numbers. And I just get burned, man. I get burned every time I go against the guy. So I like Houston, but they're not my favorite.
Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope.
Don't lose hope. Okay. I'll certainly be giving him a shot. I'll give him a shot. I'll be looking at your article tomorrow. I want to see who you settle on. So I'll be waiting for Matt Stacks for sure. But I'm with you. I like it. As far as the other side, I just don't think you have to go there. I don't mind the Texas guys. But it's kind of weird because I'm saying that I'm not, I want to like McCullers, but I'm not that. You know what? I could see a leverage play. You want to sprinkle some McCullers, make sure you sprinkle some Ranger stacks just in case, I guess. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Houston's in a very good spot for sure.
Yep.
All right, we got Zach Davies from the Milwaukee Brewers visiting one of your boys, Michael Wacha. He's won you a couple bets of the St. Louis Cardinals. Yeah. Go ahead, Matt. Start us off.
Wacha's been pretty solid this year. We know that Milwaukee's been crushing. They cooled off a little bit the last couple days, but they've still been really hitting the ball well. I could see this going either way. I could see Wacha pitching a good game and getting 7 or 8 strikeouts and 25 DraftKings points. And then I could also see, 4 home runs from the Brewers. But I do like Wacha, I think, a little bit more in this spot, only because it's in St. Louis, which is a good pitcher's park. And, they're coming from Miller Park, which is so good for hitting. And I feel like they're slowing down a little bit. So I think I do give a slight edge to Wacha. But if you were going to play 50% Wacha, I would certainly have a Milwaukee hedge stack. And then on the other side, I do think Zach Davies is a little bit interesting. He doesn't come with a lot of strikeouts, but St. Louis isn't that great, especially against righties. So maybe at this kind of cheap price, I might sprinkle him in as a starting pitcher too. But I'm not too excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you said about Wacha. Now you're a DraftKings player, so both of these guys have some interest. You have interest in them because you're looking for a cheap second option. So certainly, I'm not going to disagree with you there. As far as me playing on FanDuel, I'm not going to play either of these guys just because there's better places to go. And I think he would agree with me on FanDuel. It's maybe not necessary. But what I will say is, I kind of like Wacha from a DraftKings perspective. As much as I like Wacha, I also kind of like the Brewers' bats. And Wacha has kind of reverse splits. He actually struggles against righties. There's a lot of righties from Milwaukee. The problem is they're not all very good. So it can go 50-50. they could continue their hot streak and mash Wacha, or Wacha could really shut these guys down if he could find a way to escape Thames and Shaw and VR. So it's interesting. Now, one thing I see now, I don't know if you see the same thing. I like your weather source a little better. I got to find out what you're using. But anyway, I'm seeing winds blowing out to left about 16 miles an hour. Do you see that?
Yeah, I'm seeing the same. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's still kind of cold, 55 degrees.
Sure. No, you're 100% right. It's there's a certain 100% validity, a great point. However, I still think it's interesting for the Brewers, and this is another game where I'm gonna be watching that line move. I'm gonna watch that total. I want to see where that total goes, because there's some people out there around the Las Vegas area who know a little bit more about baseball and money in baseball than I do. So I'm gonna be paying attention to that, because I could certainly see merit for both of these offenses, but especially I think the Brewers could be sneaky again. And I mean, except for maybe Thames, I think the days of him being low owned, I would hope the days of him being low owned are over. I mean, the guy's proven himself enough, right?
But his price has gone way up. Yeah. I mean, the days he was, really cheap, of course you want to play him every day. But now when he gets up to being really expensive, and it's like now you have to decide between Thames and Anthony Rizzo.
Yeah.
Then it's not so cut and dry.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point for sure.
But anyways, it'd be interesting when the lineup comes out here. I want to see if Travis Shaw is in it,
right?
Because he did get hit in the hand and he sat out today. So if he's not in the lineup, I'd have more interest in Wacha and less in the Brewers. But I definitely want to see if he's in it when the lineup comes out.
I think that's certainly a great point, because if not, it looks like who do they go with if not? They don't have Scooter Gennett anymore, so it's what do you do?
Yeah, I think they played Hernan Perez at third today.
Right.
I think.
Okay.
And then they just played an extra outfielder.
Okay. All right. It'll definitely be interesting. I think Domingo Santana had a double down game today. That's something you don't hear that very often. And another guy that's worth keeping an eye on is Orlando Arcia. He bats 8th in the order usually, so nobody ever goes there. Look at his game logs. He's been tearing it up.
Yeah,
for sure.
And he's, it doesn't seem like a mistake. He's hitting bullets all over the field.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on here. We got Dylan Covey of the Chicago White Sox visiting the guy that nobody can seem to figure out, Jason Vargas, the lefty from the Kansas City Royals. Lead us off, Matt.
They just played this exact matchup last week in Chicago, and it was Jason Vargas chalk day. Everyone played Vargas, and he was actually more expensive last week than he is this week. And the White Sox got to him, but not too bad. So, in this spot against the same lineup in a better ballpark for pitching, at a better price, I definitely have interest in Vargas, just kind of throw him in with all the other guys we've kind of talked about at the same price. But I don't mind Vargas. And then on the other side, Covey, can't play him. He doesn't strike people out enough, and he just doesn't seem that good. So yeah, you could look at some Kansas City bats here, even though they've been the worst offense in all of baseball so far this season. I'm going to say it like I've said it every time. I really like Mike Moustakas. He's just way too cheap, and then Sal Perez is way too cheap at catcher too. So those two guys both stand out for me on KC. And then I wrote up the White Sox the other day when they were facing a weak lefty in Detroit. Because the White Sox do hit lefties much better than righties. So this could be a sneaky spot, and they are all really cheap. I don't think I'm going to go there, but if you wanted to, I think it would be it would be okay. I don't like it, of course, in this park much, because we know Kansas City is really good for pitchers, and it is going to be cold. It looks like the wind's going to be blowing from left to right across the field, so that does hurt righty power also. So I think maybe I'm talking myself a little bit more into Vargas as we go and less into the White Sox.
Oh, any day, I remember that day very well. Any day that Jason Vargas if it's chalk Jason Vargas day, it's not a good day for me. I don't like playing this guy. Now, I think you make a great point. I wouldn't be surprised to see people go after the White Sox bats here, just like, well, last time they got to Vargas or whatever the case is. So I think Vargas can be a very interesting GPP play, as much as I hate to admit it. It's a different atmosphere, different situation. Like you said also, this guy Covey, I don't think he's any good. I like the Royals bats. I hate the ballpark. Hate it. The weather's not nice. I only like to play hitters here when it's really hot and it's not there yet. But on this slate, based off what we're seeing, Covey's one of the worst pitchers on the slate. So it's hard not to like the lefties here, especially with that wind. You mentioned it was blowing left to right. I'm seeing it blowing out to right. So we're going to have to see tomorrow where it actually goes. And if it's going out, I'm going to like these lefties a lot more. You mentioned Moustakas. Hosmer's going to wake up eventually, man. This dude's got pop, and he's been horrible this year. He's going to wake up eventually, and I want to be there when it happens, especially he's 2.8 on FanDuel. 2.8. He's batting fourth, a lefty against Covey. You want to fit Kershaw? There's a decent first baseman. Him and Brandon Moss, both. Moss is at 2.7. Hosmer's at 2.8. And, of course, like you said, Moose. I mean, you can't really go wrong with Moose, 3.5. So, yeah, I think the Kansas City Royals, I think you kind of talked me into them a little bit, and then I kind of talked myself into them a little bit. I like them a little more than I did before the show. I'll say that. They're not my favorite stack, but I like them a little bit more.
The problem is they're so bad.
Yes.
The park is so bad. I mean,
yes.
They're dead last in the league in runs per game at 2.64, which is almost a full run behind the Giants, who are second to last.
Oh, it's horrible.
So it's just really tough, and it's like you said Eric Hosmer has just been just dreadful.
Yeah.
I kind of want to just look up his numbers. I mean, he's batting 224 with 1 home run.
Dude, he's been legit embarrassing. Like, embarrassing, man.
I don't think I can do it, especially because even if Covey struggles, the White Sox bullpen is decent.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. That's a a lot of people don't realize that. The White Sox bullpen isn't so bad. Yeah.
I mean, there's no way I can go to Kansas City when I can go to Cleveland.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Against that Detroit bullpen.
And, just so you guys know, those cheat sheets from Daily Roto Sharks, click the link in the description to get access. They have bullpen stats. You can see which bullpens you want to target because it matters, especially like Detroit, where we mentioned the pitcher probably won't last long. Covey may not last long. These things matter. So that's a great point, Matt. Something I didn't even think about. You want to move on to the last game?
Yeah, I mean, the bullpens matter a lot because that's like half the game of pitchers.
Yes, you're 100% right. 100%.
And you also kind of got to think of like how you expect the game to go. If you expect it to be a close game, then you're going to get the better parts of the bullpen. And if it's a blowout, I mean, these are things, of course, are really hard to project. But if you envision the game being a blowout, which is, of course, what you think is going to happen if you're stacking the team or what you want to happen, then you're going to get the bad part of a bullpen. So if you're getting a team that already has a bad bullpen and now you're getting the bad part of it, then that's obviously a big bonus.
Absolutely. I think it's 100% right. We got one more game to get through, and then we can take a couple questions if there are any in this chat. We got a bunch of people in there, so we'll see. And then we can talk a little game theory before we close out the show. We got Johnny Cueto of the San Francisco Giants visiting your Los Angeles Dodgers, and Clayton Kershaw, the GOAT. Go ahead, Matt.
I mean, if you can afford Kershaw, you can play him. He's the best pitcher on the slate by a million. I don't think there's anything wrong with him. He faced the Giants last week in San Francisco, and he went 7 innings, and he only got 7 strikeouts, 27.6 DraftKings points. But if you're playing cash, don't mess around. Just play Kershaw. He'll be fine. The Giants, as we just mentioned, are 29th in the league in runs scored. It seems like a really watered-down lineup every day the last few days. Like, I just look, and it's like, who are these guys? I mean, they have, like, Michael Morse in the lineup. I was like, I didn't even know you were in baseball anymore.
Yeah, for real, man.
But anyways, I love Kershaw, and he's even better at Dodger Stadium. He has like a 32% strikeout rate and a 1% walk rate. Yeah, he's just super safe. And then Cueto on the other side, I think he's an okay GPP play, but I don't want to do it just because the Dodgers do hit righties well, and they just called this Bellinger kid up 2 or 3 games ago, and he looks pretty good. Yeah. So if you wanted to stack against Cueto, it wouldn't be the most outlandish thing in the world for sure. And it is still a little bit warmer here, and it is still a little bit drier, and I don't expect the marine layer to be quite in full effect tomorrow. So, I don't hate it, and I want to look at the Dodgers prices right now. They're still all really cheap. So if you wanted to Seager, Agon, Puig, Justin Turner, who we know is reverse splits, and then this Bellinger kid, and Grandal, I don't hate any of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Matt. And what's interesting from a FanDuel perspective is the Dodgers are priced. Their hitters, they're priced to play with Kershaw. Tolles, 2.2. Seager, 3K. Turner, 3.2. These guys were Seager was just 3.5. Now, Cueto, listen, he's not bad. Don't get me wrong. I got love for the guy. but I don't consider him on an elite level. I think guys should be severely underpriced against him. So I think that's interesting here. If you're playing the late slate, sure, the Dodgers are going to be one of the offenses I go after. If you're looking at the whole slate, I don't mind the Dodgers against Cueto. It'll certainly be contrarian, I think. But I just don't know if you have to go there. There's already a bunch of stacks we talked about that I like more, I think. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, on the main slate, you don't have to go there at all. But I've been playing all the slates the last couple weeks, and so I kind of get into these spots where I just I want to know about all the teams, and I think the Dodgers for sure in the late slate are in play.
Yeah, I definitely think I certainly think they're in play. I don't hate it. Listen, to the main slate, if you want to take the shot, if you want to play Kershaw and you're looking for some cheap bats to match him up with, the Dodgers are there, man. They're all cheap. Grandal 2.6, Agon 2.5, so I certainly see the merit in it. So Matt, as I sift through to see if we have any legit questions, we have about 10 minutes left. Let's go over a little bit of game theory here. Just in your opinion, quick overview. What do you think is going to be the chalk stack of the day?
Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland's my favorite at first glance, just because we said we know Norris has control problems.
Right. They went nuts today.
They scored 12 runs today. It's just like they have a lot of good pieces. Santana and Lindor and Geyer bats third against lefties, and Encarnacion and Jose Ramirez is a switch hitter. Yan Gomes is a decent punt catcher. We know Detroit's bullpen is terrible. So I expect tomorrow to see them as the number one most owned offense, and then I would expect to see Houston number two. Yeah. Only just because as I broke it down, those were my two favorites. So I assume when I look tomorrow, those are going to be the two top stacks.
Yeah, I think that I was having a hard time kind of locating the chalk, and I think you did a good job of pointing it out to me. You're absolutely right. The Indians, especially once you mentioned their name, I realized, you know what, they went nuts today. Yeah, I think you're right. The Indians will be probably chalky. In Houston, they're also projected for the highest total runs as far as run projection goes. So I think you're right, man. Let me ask you now. I know you like Houston and Cleveland. I know that they're up there on your list. You're a tournament player, and you play contrarian lineups, but you don't necessarily always fade the chalk. I know that about you, and you've had success. So aside from those two plays, what are some of your favorite stacks you think might be sneaky, maybe things like that?
The Braves. I like the Braves a lot. We talked about that ballpark. I'm on board with you with the Mets. I do like the Tigers a decent bit just because I said that Bauer struggles with home runs. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that I really like. There's not a lot else that I'm really excited about. I'll be interested to see where the Cubs are going to come in the ownership realm. Mm-hmm. If they're going to be really low owned, I will have some interest in the Cubs for sure. Because just like I said, Velazquez doesn't seem to quite have the pop this year, getting people out. Striking people out, and when he struggles, he gives up home runs. If the wind's going to be blowing out at Wrigley, I do have some interest in the Cubs.
I think that's anytime you can get the Cubs low ownership, it's a good deal. Hey, I got a question here from the chat here. Okay, so this one's coming from his YouTube screen name is Damn Lazy Mofos. So after giving up 23 runs, do you think the Braves at home will be chalk against the Mets? I'm assuming obviously he means that the Mets giving up 23 runs.
Right. I don't think that the Braves will be chalk just because I don't know if the Braves are ever chalk. Now, I think like Freddie Freeman might be chalk. Like he's been pretty high on lately, like 15, 20%. Mm-hmm. And, a guy like Inciarte might be 10 to 15%, and Kemp might be 10 to 15%. Right. But I don't think Adonis Garcia and Dansby Swanson and Tyler Flowers and all those guys, I don't think their ownership will be very high. And I think when you kind of compare them to all the other spots, I think they might come in third or fourth most high owned.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. The Braves did well in Milwaukee. You combine that with the fact that the Mets did give up a crap ton of runs. I think it does make sense that the Braves would be up there. I agree with you. I don't think the Braves are going to be the chalkiest spot, but I certainly think they'll be more popular than the Mets. I'll tell you that. And it's one of the reasons I kind of like the Mets kind of as a leverage play. I tell you right now, I think the Mets are going to win this game. Now, that doesn't necessarily matter in terms of DFS, but I like the Braves offense also. So I don't think the Braves are going to get shut out. The Braves are going to put up some runs. I just think the Mets are going to put up more. That should tell you how much I do like the Mets tomorrow. So, Matt, I think that's great insight. Here's an interesting question. I know you answered it in the chat, but I wanted to ask it because I think some of the listeners who maybe listen to this tomorrow can learn from it, Matt. Matt, do you see – this is from I'm a Problem over here on the YouTube chat. Matt, do you see a benefit of stacking your pitcher with your stack, especially in the National League?
Well, I think, on DraftKings, it makes more sense just because, on FanDuel where you only can use 4 people from the same team, like when you do use your pitcher and it cuts your stack down to 3, like I don't like that very much. But I think on DraftKings where you can stack 5 and use the pitcher from the same team, I think is totally fine. I was just saying, like, I don't try to avoid the pitcher from the same team, but I don't seek him out. Like, if it just happens that I want the Dodgers and I want Kershaw, like, that's fine.
Right.
But I don't necessarily seek it out. It's like, yeah, when your team goes off, your pitcher always gets the win. But also I think it limits their upside because if your team's up 10-1, I think they tend to pull the pitcher a little bit earlier just because it just doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So, for instance, tomorrow if the Dodgers are up 10-1 in the 5th inning and Kershaw's at 88 pitches, he's not coming out for the 6th inning. You know what I mean? So it kind of limits your upside. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no.
So
yeah, of course.
Yeah, I think you can kind of take it on a case-by-case basis. Like, if it was Amir Garrett tomorrow and he's 5,500 and he fits with your red stack, like, yeah, that's cool. Like, because it doesn't really matter because he's only 5,500. That win is, like, really valuable. But when it's an expensive guy and you need a huge game from him, I'm less likely to do it. But if it works out, it's fine. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And just to further your point, now I know you're a DraftKings player. You mentioned that on DraftKings it makes sense because of the extra player. Let me tell you why it makes sense on FanDuel, and it might even make more sense because you get points for the win. You know what I'm saying? So that now on the one hand, if you hit too much of your ceiling with the hitters, you're right. You got to worry about that pitcher coming out a little early, and that could screw you up. But on the other hand, if you can get just enough, if you can get that 5 or 6, if you just don't miss on the other 3 players on FanDuel, if you just don't miss, then I think it's interesting because you do get an extra. I think it's 4 points for the, or maybe it's 6 points. One's the quality, one's the win. I forget which one.
I think you get six on FanDuel. You do get 4 points for a win on DraftKings.
Okay, I see. I didn't even realize on DraftKings you got the win also. So yeah,
yep.
I think that it could be a way to go. But like you said, Matt, it's a per. There's no like direct answer. It's kind of a per slate scenario. Yeah. So yeah, I think you hit it on the head. So that's pretty much going to do it for us today, guys. Listen, for those of you that came and watched live over in the chat, we appreciate it. Fuego, we're going to talk on Twitter, man. I'm definitely interested in that little avatar bet with Tehran and my Metsies. Fuego's in the chat calling me a homer, and he's absolutely right. I'm being a homer, but it's because I really believe in him. You know what this reminds me of, Matt? This reminds me of the first MLB pod you were on, and you called out those Dodgers, and you were big on those Dodgers, and you were going to the game, and everybody was like, Matt's a homer, and what happened? They put up double-digit runs?
Hey, we know our team. We know our teams, man. You know your team got embarrassed today, and you expect them to show up tomorrow. So I'm gonna be stacking up the Mets tomorrow.
Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna be having me some Brave shares, of course. I think the game in general is a good environment, but I like the Mets personally. They're probably my favorite stack. I don't think people realize, man, they're not catching on. That Braves Park, man, it was built for Freddie Freeman, man, which means it was built for lefty power. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, if you want to get Matt's final takes, you're going to want to check Daily Roto Sharks tomorrow. Of course, you can find him on Twitter at MattAmon123. Be on the lookout. Matt's Stacks, that's dailyrotosharks.com. Click the link in the description to sign up for your Daily Roto Sharks cheat sheets. Get access to the team. You get access to guys like Fuego. You get access to guys like Matt, Benjamin, CG, Scotty B, Bill. There's a lot of people. It's a great, phenomenal team. I enjoy being a part of it. I know Matt does too. That's right. I'm a problem in the chat over there. All the Freddie Freeman. I'm with you. I don't blame you for that one. But listen, guys, support the podcast. Check out these cheat sheets. Click the link in the description and sign up. We really, really appreciate having the live audience. It's a lot of fun. Matt, thanks again as always for coming on. But yeah, that's gonna do it for the pod today, my man. Okay, here we go. What is that? Freddie Freeman right there.
I got Freddie Freeman. My son left his baseball
There you
cards
go.
here,
There you go. He's got the Freddie free. He's got the Freddie
Yeah.
free. Loving it, man. All right, guys. So we'll be back with another podcast tomorrow. Obviously, the live shows are only Sunday night, so you have to watch the recorded version, of course. Anyway, if you're watching this on YouTube, please, guys, do us a favor. You're in the chat. Click that like button for us. That thumbs up means a lot to us. We're trying to grow. Tell everybody about us, man. Anybody that you think is into DFS or might be into the pod, tell them about us. Spread the word. We're trying to grow those subscribers. We're growing quickly, but we want to keep it going. If you're listening on Podbean, give us a follow. If you're listening on iTunes, subscribe to the channel, and most importantly, leave us some positive feedback. Leave us some reviews. We're trying to bump up those charts. We're trying to make the show better. We want to hear feedback anyway, because you tell me what to do. We're going to try our best to do it and make this show better for you guys. Anyway, guys, for Matt Amon, for the whole Daily Roto Sharks team, hashtag Sheet Squad, and of course for
Hashtag Sheet
there
Squad.
it is, and of course for myself, as always, good luck.